Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to today's event. I'm Laura Dillon from MSDynamicsWorld.com. We're here today for a session all about paperless automation, the 5 perks of going paperless. I'm joined by Doug Bertram, Regional Manager at MetaViewer Information Systems, and it's great to have him here with us today. So as we get started, please know that Doug would welcome your feedback and your questions during this event. You can use the Q&A blocks over there on the right-hand side of the webcast window. So without further delay, please allow me to welcome Doug. Doug, I'll leave it to you.
Great, thanks, Laura. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be here today. This is a new presentation for me, so I'm a little bit. I think we should be able to fill up the whole hour. I think I've got a little bit less time, and we should have time at the end for some Q&A. So, really, the kind of the format today. We're going to talk about paperless automation, as Laura said. And we're going to present some research findings from various organizations that have done some research on the topic. And I'm going to kind of combine that with some live products. So kind of, as we go through some of each of the 5 perks, we're going to kind of try and interject a real live system. And so we're going to kind of bounce in and out of the PowerPoint and over to some real live products. So with that, we'll kind of go ahead and get started here. So this is a background slide of me. I guess this essentially just says I'm old and I don't have much hair, but basically I've been around a long time in this industry as a business owner, a solid business background, and then at my current role in MetaViewer, I've been here 12 years working with clients to educate them on how to get from a paper-based process to a more automated process and really increase their business visibility. So what is paperless automation? I think it's fairly obvious, but just to kind of make sure we're all on the same page, it's really taking that paper-based process that you have that's really time-consuming and error-prone and all that shuffling of paper, and capturing those documents into an electronic system that can kind of better manage those and give you immediate feedback and routing things around in a more of a controlled fashion. And so today's webinar, we're going to discuss some of the benefits of that, and really the benefits of paperless automation. Usually, when people ask me, why should we go with MetaViewer? What would MetaViewer do for us? And really, I usually tell people control, visibility, and efficiency, kind of breaking those out a little bit more in detail to some specific benefits: time savings, visibility, increased accuracy. Return on investment really is kind of a culmination of all of that all put together, and how does it really help the bottom line of my business? And then enhanced functionality. We're going to talk about that basically using the solution across the enterprise. Probably our most popular solution where people look for automation is in the AP automation, the AP space of their business, processing invoices and bringing all the benefits that you see there on the screen to that particular aspect of their business. But when we get towards the end, we'll look at some enhanced functionality and how you can really leverage paperless automation across the enterprise. And at the end of the presentation, as Laura said, you can ask questions as we go through. At the end, we'll kind of bring up that Q&A queue and ask some specific questions. And then at the end, I also have some email and some contact information for myself and our company. And if you wanted to look a little bit more specific one-on-one, you can certainly reach out to us that way as well. So going to the first benefit, time savings. So the Aberdeen Group did a study. They looked at companies with automation and without automation, and kind of surveyed as to how long does it take them to get their invoices through their system. And as you can see from this slide, the bottom tier companies that don't have any sort of automation are taking 34.4 days to process their invoices. Well, given that the most popular terms for payment terms are 30 days, that actually sets itself up for failure. You're already not going to meet the payment terms, and then that can have some certain consequences. So implementing something like automation does bring those extra time savings, and we're going to kind of demonstrate some of that kinds of things today. But just because you can pay faster or you can get the documents through the system faster doesn't mean you necessarily have to pay faster. It basically just alleviates the stress of trying to get everything through the system, and then you can pay on your terms with the best interest of managing your working capital. So the AIM group did a survey, and they found that a large group of AP departments reported a 50% reduction in invoice processing costs, and 43% of those say it was mostly due to the faster invoice processing times. Less hunting for things, less data entry, less walking things around the office. So all those can have a pretty dramatic impact on the time savings. So let's check out, I'm going to jump over to my working system, and we're going to kind of show you some examples of how the system can actually save you time in processing your documents. So let's escape out of there. So probably one of the big things to begin with is that eliminating that data entry, right? By having an intelligent system that can capture the documents from an email box or a scanner or something like that, automatically pull those documents in and capturing and keeping them electronic right from the get-go. And so once those documents come in, a system can intelligently read that document and extract the data. So how it does that is very similar to how a person would do it. So if I gave you an invoice and said, hey, tell me what the invoice number is, you would look for something that you're used to looking for invoice number, invoice pound, invoice no, something like that. And when you find it, you would tell me what the value is right next to it. Well, that's how the systems can read the documents and extract that data. So here I've got an example up here, and you can see we're on the invoice number field. So the system found one of those, what we call an anchor word, basically a common word used for the field for invoice number. And so when it found it, it grabbed that 8956, copied that information, and automatically filled it into the invoice number field. So if I tab through these, you can see the same. Here's how it found the date off of a document, purchase order number, tax amount. The system actually can be smart enough to look at all the pages of an invoice. So it looks like it's blank here. If I actually jump to the last page, it's got the intelligence to go look at all the pages and try and figure out where the best location of that information, shipping, and then invoice total as well. So from a data capture perspective, that's probably your biggest time savings, eliminating that data entry by having the system intelligently read the document like this, extract that data, and then that data can be used in the MetaViewer document management system, but ultimately we're going to share that data with your financial system. So now you don't have to key that information into MetaViewer or that financial system. So if I look at a document that's in the workflow, if I open up this AP preparation here, oops, let me log in. All right, so I've got all the documents that are sitting in that workflow. So really the second aspect of a time savings is I don't have to walk these invoices all around the organization. I actually look at those documents in a sample here. This is kind of that queue. This is that equivalent of that big paper stack that I've got typically in front of me. And I look and I want this one to go to Joe. I want this one to go to Sally, and I start walking them all around the office. Well, with an electronic system like MetaViewer, if I open up, let's just open up a document here. So I've not only extracted the data out of the document, but we've also interacted with some financial systems to pull back some additional information. I look at this document, and I can send it to up to 5 different approvers in this particular system. But if I decided to say send for approval, I click a button called send for approval, and it's immediately sent to the person who's responsible for approving that invoice. I don't have to walk it around the office or anything like that. So if I were to log out and go in as my approver, I have a queue here that says my approvals, 2 invoices, right? So I open that document up, and then here's that Gardener Services invoice that I just sent to them. So they have the ability to open that document up. They can look at that document. They can see the pertinent information. They can see where it's been and the notes over there. And so that's kind of really your second time savings, is really just being able to pass that data around. If he says approve, essentially it goes to the next step, which would be my final review step. And likewise, he could escalate it to another approver or something like that. Here's that Gardener Services invoice. In this case, he said final review, and this gives the person to look at it one last time. They have the ability to Send it to the AP manager, request additional approvals, do various things with the document, but everything's electronic. And when I want it to go somewhere, I can send it and have it immediately be there. Even exporting it to my ERP, I can click that button, it communicates with that financial system and then takes the data that this document is all about and then can create that transaction up in the financial system, which I have an example here. I forgot to launch this. Hang on a second. Oops. And so if I open up a transaction in here, let's go, here's that Gardener Services invoice. So the ability to eliminate that data entry and that immediate feedback of passing things around. Think of your own organization as if I had to manually enter every transaction that comes in, how many invoices do you do a month? 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 times however many minutes it takes somebody to manually key this information in. There's a huge, huge time savings with that. Okay. Let's go back to the PowerPoint here. And start this back up. All right, so those are some examples of time savings. Accuracy. All right, the second benefit of a AP automation or process automation. The manual data entry not only is it time consuming, but it's a very inaccurate way to do business. As you sit there and type things, if you manually enter the wrong information, that could lead to bad consequences. Losing documents, not being able to find things when you're looking for them. Prism International did a study that said 2 to 7% of documents are misfiled at an average cost of $120 per document. Executives, this is kind of even the more disturbing thing, is that executives spend 150 hours per year looking for misplaced documents or looking for information. So having everything at your fingertips really helps eliminate a lot of that hunting around for documents. And then integration with other systems can also provide that better accuracy. So things like duplicate checks or pulling additional information back from other systems so that you don't have to enter any of that information at all. It's not always, some of that information isn't always on the document itself. You need to maybe rely on integrating with some other solutions to be able to see more of that information. So some examples. Let's go escape out of the PowerPoint here and jump over to my system. All right, so if we bring up another example here, let's look at this document right here. All right, so I'm looking at a document. I actually have got some tight integration with those other systems. So in this particular case, when I notice that it's for the West Junction as the vendor, it goes out and gets back things from the vendor records in the financial systems like payment terms, for example. It pulls that information back. From that, it can automatically calculate a due date. It can calculate an early paid date. It can calculate an early paid discount if you've got discount terms associated with that invoice. And this allows you to prioritize your work. So I can actually make sure I'm focusing on capturing all the appropriate discounts and getting to those documents within the early pay discount date. Are they a 1099 vendor? Things like that, so I can account for that 1099 amount in the workflows as well. Now, and this can actually happen in real time. So for example, if I were to pick a different vendor, I can start typing a vendor name and it talks to that system and shows all the different vendors that have ADV in them. If I pick Advanced Office Systems here, you can see it then goes and updates. So my payment terms for Advanced is net 30, so then it recalculated the due date. There is no early pay date or early pay discount because there are no terms for this particular vendor. So that real-time integration with those other systems really eliminates some more data entry as well as that accuracy of pulling back the appropriate information. So I'm going to change that back. Whoops, wrong vendor. I'm going to change that back to West Junction. And then it re-updates all my terms. So other integrations, if I click the button up here that says Code and Reconcile, it can now communicate with that financial system to both automatically code the invoice based on the default setup for that vendor. So you can see here it eliminated all that data entry and the accuracy of entering all the account codes because it's using what are our defaults. If for some reason I wanted to edit some of that information, we can actually integrate in the way that if I wanted to add another row, for example, I can start typing an account number, and rather than have to type the whole account number, I start typing and it communicates directly with the chart of accounts and shows me all the valid chart of accounts. So I can't enter one. I can either select from the list or keep typing until I get to the one I want. If I try to enter one that doesn't exist, it stops and it won't allow me to enter something that isn't a valid account. So if I enter that and put in another $100, I can do that. Now I had the system balanced out, so I'm going to actually reduce this purchase account by $100 to tie everything out. So all that interactability with other financial systems or other systems to be able to validate the data, make sure we're pulling back accurate data, but also eliminating those manually keying errors and those types of things. So with that, I could say coded, approval required, and route it on to the next system. Now another example of how this can really improve your business process and your accuracy is, let me pull up a different document here. Back to my home page. And let's pull up another example. Let's pull up this Metro Business Equipment invoice. So in this case, if I've got it all coded and I've got it ready to go to the approver, when I click send for approval, it can, oops. Oh, that was the wrong one. It can prompt, it actually can check into those other systems to say, hey, have we paid an invoice for this vendor with that that ID before? And so when you can see here, we found one duplicate payment, and it can retrieve some of the information for me. If I wanted to see the document that it matched to, I have easy access to that document to be able to open it up, and then I could compare those. If I had two monitors here, right, I could actually put those side by side and be able to see that information a little bit clearer. It's a little bit hard for me to do here with a single monitor. So being able to see some of that information as well and eliminate that accuracy problems with the manual data entry. Okay. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Talk about continue on with some other benefits. So accuracy, we talked about that. We talked about time savings. Talked about accuracy. Visibility. This is probably the most powerful tool because it can really help you run your business better. If I start passing paper around and it's on somebody's desk, where is that document? I can't find it. I waste a lot of time looking for those. You don't know what's all in the system. What is all out there? If it's all a paper-based process, I can't see at month end what is waiting for us to process, and so I can accrue the right amounts in my financial system. So the ability to capture all this information and route it around electronically provides access to a lot of that data. So as an example, let's go look at a few things. And let's log in as my AP manager. So as a AP manager, I can have various queues on my home page that allow me to see various things. So out waiting for approval. I see this queue here. I've got two in my system. It's just a demo system, so I don't have as much invoices out there as a traditional company, but you would be able to see everything that's out there waiting for approvals, waiting for payment information, being able to communicate with the financial system and pull back payment information. I've got 4 documents out there. So I can actually see that visibility right on my home page through a dashboard like this that gives me access to all the different things that I want to see. If I wanted to see what's out for waiting for approval, I can click on that, and it drills me down and sees all those documents. I can see who the approver is as to what who they're out with, and then I can drill down and look at that document. Other things, being able to find things instantly. If I were to say, log back in as this user, so I can have searches. So I don't have to dig around in file cabinets or hunt around on whose desk it's in. If I wanted to look for something, I could use a system like MetaViewer to find anything within a second or two. I can be prompted for what am I looking for. I don't have to remember what file cabinet it's in, what network folder it's in, or anything like that. I just come in here and let's say I want to find payment number 20058, check number 20058. When I hit the enter, it goes out and it finds all the documents that were paid with that particular check number. So I can see Advanced Office Systems invoice 5863 and 5864. If I click on that and drill down in there, I can look at all the details of that document. I also, as documents flow through workflows, we can track audit trails as to who did what with the document. So you can see here is an automated process. We pulled back the payment amount. We pulled back the voucher number. Let's see. It says here, Joe Approver approved it. It was coded by my AP user, so I've got that history and that audit trail of everywhere that has been. Okay. Other things, because all the data is stored in a database, it allows you to report on that data through either SQL reports or even an Excel spreadsheet. That's one of the more popular ways that we're working with companies to give them access to that data. So for example, one of the popular reports that we do is an accrual report. So I say, show me everything that's out for approval or everything that's in the system that we haven't uploaded to our financial system yet. So here's an example of an Excel spreadsheet that brings back all of that data. And so this spreadsheet shows everything that's in my system that's somewhere in the process, not delivered to my financial system. And then we can actually have hyperlinks right from this report to allow me to view an invoice. So for example, if I wanted to pull up that West Junction invoice that we were looking at, I can click the view. It then drills me down securely into that document, and I can see where it's been. You know, it was coded by my AP user. It's out for approval. I can see all that information as necessary. Okay. Other things that you can do with report, once I pull things back to a spreadsheet, I can actually create some pivot tables and things like that. If I refresh here, I can actually see that data in different formats. I can see by account code and then the total amounts and the total number of payables that are associated with that. Spend analysis with my vendors. What's outstanding right now for each of the vendors, or I can even divide that up into if I refresh here, into a different view to analyze it either graphically or in a tabular list. And then once everything's in a spreadsheet, any good financial person knows how to get around Excel, and they can analyze this data, do what they want with the data in a spreadsheet format. Okay. Another visibility would be an auditor. Let's say I've got an auditor coming in. I can actually find, I can either do my searches and instantly find all the documents that they want, or I could actually give them temporary access to the system. And as I could limit the date range that they're interested in looking at and give them access to the system. So if I were to come in here and say I'm an auditor, and it allows them to search for what they're looking for. If I just do a little search here, I can see all the documents that meet that particular criteria. If I were to say, let's look for Kruger Engineering as an example. So if they wanted to see vendor Kruger, right? I've got 4 invoices that meet that criteria. If I were doing the search for the auditor, or they wanted to do this, they could select all those invoices and they could export those to a PDF. And I can say, I want to see the document fields, I want to see the line item, how it was coded, I want to see the notes on that document. You can see all that information. If I say OK, it basically creates a PDF for me. And this would be my separator page. This would be the document fields, the data that we extracted or interacted with the financial system to pull that data back. This is the notes, who approved it, who coded it, how we interacted with the financial system. So I've got all that information. What it was coded to, the line item details, the actual document itself, and the next separator page, next document, and so on. Given this PDF, this is a, let's see, this is an 18-page document with all those in there. I could also then search that that document. If, let's say, let me find something good to search for. If I were going to search for account code 2100, for example, I found 2 occurrences. I've got the one highlighted there, and this is another document that was coded to that 2100 as well. So I can navigate to both of the results. All right, so give me that visibility, whether it's your own internal people, a management from a reporting perspective, or even somebody that's coming in for an auditor. How nice would that be to have everything at your fingertips for that auditor when they come in? All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint here. All right, so the 4th benefit was ROI, really kind of a culmination of all of that information. We do have some tools that we can give you to, if you wanted to follow up with us, to help you analyze your ROI. As this study says, it basically, in a nutshell, less time touching and tracking documents around and looking for things all means that there's less interaction with that document per employee. And so the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants did a kind of a study of different types of companies, from average to best in class, of what they feel, even the same volume levels as to what they feel is their cost for processing an invoice. And you can see here it has a very, very dramatic impact on the organization. So ultimately, as the studies also indicate, it really kind of relates back to that visibility and being able to see things and reduce the amount of time necessary. And as a rule, I think people don't mean to take so long to do things, but if it's not easy, it tends to shift to the bottom of our piles. And so giving them a system where they have easy access to everything that they need to help them make their decision makes the job easier. I have a client that after they were using MetaViewer for a while, I kind of touched in with them to see, hey, how are things going and how are the users liking the system, and their approvers were loving the system, mainly because of that easy access. And they went from 10 days to approve an invoice to 2, mainly because they had access to everything that they needed. And kind of as an example of that, let's bring up a purchase invoice. So if I were a buyer and I've got this invoice and I had to match the invoice to a purchase order, let's bring up an invoice here. Let's bring this one up here. So I've got an invoice that's associated with the purchase order number. So I want to see everything that, if I click the code and reconcile, if I want to see everything that I need to help match this to the purchase order, I can actually communicate with that financial system. So you can see down here, I can see all the receipts against that purchase order in our system. So receipt 1165, looks like we got 20 red shirts and 15 yellow shirts. I have a difference in the bottom right of $75. So now that means that there's something different. If I looked at the document itself is just for the red shirt, so it's not really for the yellow shirts. If I wanted to see the original purchase order, or I want to see the packing slip of what we've received or things like that, rather than have to hunt around for them, I can actually have links to supporting documents. So because the purchase order, if I wanted to see the purchase order, I have it right there. I can see the original purchase order, what did we buy things for, how many were we expecting to get, or maybe I wanted to see the packing slip, or this is actually the W-9 for the vendor. All that information I have right here, right from the same window. Same thing with the notes. Yep, I can see any validations or anything like that that transpired with that document. Okay. Continuing with our ROI, 39% of the companies reported a scanning and document capture investment and a payback in 12 months or less for all the different reasons that we stated there. So really, you can see a quote there from one of our customers. I had another customer that 2 years after automation, they had a staff member retire, and they didn't replace that person. 8 years later, their volume was up 76%, and they still had not replaced that person. So I think the key point here is it doesn't mean people are going to lose their jobs. As a past business owner or anyone that's ever been responsible for hiring good people, it takes a lot of effort to go find those people. And why would you want to go through that on a regular basis? So if you are growing, I can push those additional needs to hire some additional people off. So automating and having a platform for handling that growth in a better fashion is definitely a key contributor to the ROI, as well as that natural attrition. If somebody were to leave, I don't have to necessarily replace them right away. I can I have the tools in place to better allow me to handle that volume with that person leaving. So, and ultimately, I guess the other best way that you can get the better value out of your employees is by eliminating that data entry and all that mundane tasks that they have to do. They can actually have time to do some more value add items that you don't have time to do today. Things like spend analysis, like I said, the reports and the kinds of things that I gave you, that all that data that's in the system, being able to analyze those vendors. Maybe if I knew exactly what I was spending per vendor, I could actually then have some better tools to negotiate better terms and pricing discounts and those types of things. And so that's where a system like MetaViewer that tracks all that information can give you that information. I think the other thing too from an ROI perspective is that visibility. As I kind of indicated, how we can calculate discount amounts and due dates and making sure you prioritize your work so that you are capitalizing on those discounts. And I think it's pretty common when I've talked to a lot of clients, nobody wants to admit that they're not capitalizing on all the vendor discounts, but the reality is they probably are. As that first slide showed, if you're average on processing an invoice in 34 days, not only are you not getting the discounts, but you're actually paying late, and then there's maybe finance charges or things like that could be assessed if you're not doing things efficiently. All right, benefit 5, enhanced functionality. Document management systems, today we kind of focused on, is my example anyways, is that most popular solution, that invoice processing side of things and the interactability with the financial systems and having that control, efficiency, and visibility. But really, a good system like MetaViewer, you can actually leverage that across your enterprise. And so things like, we can talk about some of the other things that you can do, HR, all the documents and processes over there, order processes if you're very heavy on the client side, contracts, being able to manage those, whether that's just an electronic file cabinet, being able to get rid of the paper filing cabinets, being able to find anything through those easy searches in a second or two, or whether it's the full process automation, that interactability with other systems, doing some validation checks throughout the process. All of that allows you to streamline your processes and really gives you better compliance to rules of your process. So that's one of the things. If you might have policies and procedures of how things are supposed to flow through your organization, but without an automated process, that's really the weakest link there is having employees that can remember all those rules. If you automate the process and those rules are built into the system, it's very easy to comply with those rules and make sure that you're doing everything in that fashion. All right, so some enhanced functionality, building onto that. We do have a little bit extra time here. We're kind of moving along pretty well. I can actually show you some examples of some of these other things. But taking the same kind of concepts of capturing data, workflowing them around and those types of things, expense reports. What organization doesn't do expense reports, right? Where I was on a business trip and I've got all my receipts and the documents to process, requisitions, feeding into creating a purchase order and getting pre-approval for buying things. Adding new vendors and getting that approved through the process, making sure that everybody says, yep, we're good to add this new vendor, and creating those vendors. Check batch approval, and historically organizations in a paper-based world, they print all the checks and they staple or paperclip the invoices to each check, and then somebody has to flip through there. Being able to do that in a more controlled and automated fashion and doing it electronically and having it tie directly to all the invoices that are associated with that particular check. Journal entries, and we talked about HR, contracts, auditor searching. We kind of talked about that one a little bit, and some various functionality. So just kind of giving you another example, since we've got a little bit of time here. Oops, I think I'm in the wrong. Bring this up. And so some of the other functionality I have under this user here. So a common one, let's look at expense reports. In a paper-based world, you might have an Excel spreadsheet that you open up and you enter. I had this for airfare, this for hotel, this for mileage, my lunch and all that stuff, and you put that all in there. You grab all your receipts and you staple them all to that, and then you walk it over to your boss and do those kinds of things. Well, I can actually use a document management system to actually create that expense report. So I can have a shortcut like this one that says create an expense report. I click on that. And basically, instead of filling out a spreadsheet, I'm filling everything in here. So I can say webinar is my purpose. Customer visited was none. And the date, customer reimbursables, no. My date, let's say that was today. End date was today. I need to route this to my boss, and I'm in the Fabricam company. So now below that header level information is the ability where I could enter in my expenses. So I can come in here and I can pick my expense date. I can have a drop down of all the available types. So I can say, let's say mileage on this one. And if I said I want 150 miles, the system can know and be updated periodically with what is the mileage rate. So then it automatically fills in my amount there for $75. Tabbing down, let's say airfare, right? And my airfare was $268.93, and so on. I can enter all my expenses there. I can come over here to where it says add pages. If I scanned all my receipts or took a photo of them with my phone and they all uploaded to my Dropbox or something like that, I can then access those documents. I can say browse, and if I open those documents up, my receipts, I can simply drag and drop those over into my browser here and say upload those pages. And now I can see page 1 is my hotel receipt, and page 2 is some other receipts that I either scanned or took a picture of or did whatever I wanted there. So I look at that, and then same thing, that instant submission. I say submit. It leaves my queue, goes to my manager. My manager logs in, expense report approvals. She's got a queue for that. And she can see the expense report was submitted by me. She could return it to me with a note. She could say return to requester, and it prompts her for a note as to, okay, no way, or you spent too much on airfare. We're only going to reimburse you $100 or whatever. So you can interact and then pass that around in real time, keeping track of all those notes. When I get prompted for a note, it gets it added into that area. Otherwise, I say approve. We can even validate or verify where you can approve this for 344, making sure that I did check that I am approving for that amount. And I say approve, routes it into the next step. So expense reports, final review. I can see, I can change the view from user to user. What's more important? As this particular user, maybe the pages aren't quite as important. They want more space. Let's do it this way too. They want more space for all the items, and kind of verifying all that information. They can say, okay, I want this. The vendor for this is Doug. It adds the pay account for that particular person, and then they say export that to the financial system. So being able to use the system as your form and have all those business rules and controls to what are the mileage amounts and do the validation checks of all those and immediately route that around from person to person. So another example of how you can use the system or leverage the system for other uses. All right, so I think that really concludes what I wanted to cover today. That control, efficiency, and visibility into the process, and all that contributes to that return on investment. You can leverage your return on investment by utilizing it across your enterprise. So all the business processes and all the paper-based things that you're shuffling paper around and you're losing things and all those types of things all contribute to the benefits of paperless automation. Here's some contact information. I'll leave this up on the screen. I think I'll bring Laura back on the line, and if you guys ask some questions in the chat or the Q&A feature of the WebNX, I can certainly address some of those questions now. You can certainly add some as we go through the existing questions, and Laura will keep asking them. Otherwise, there's some contact information. You can visit us on our website for more information, or email us, and we can follow up and see how exactly can we help you. We can look at your specific needs. We can set up a more formal demo of a particular process that is most important to you, or give us a call. Laura?
Great. Thank you, Doug. That was really interesting. Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, this is the time if anybody wants to ask any questions. There's a Q&A box over there on the right-hand side. Feel free to type those in. We'll give people a couple of minutes to collect their thoughts. Well, I don't see any questions coming in, Doug. I guess you answered everybody's questions as you were going through it. That's great. Well, thanks everyone so much for your time today. I guess we'll wrap up there. Doug, thanks for your presentation. We really appreciate it. We did record today's session. We'll be sending that out with you shortly. And if you don't mind, for the attendees, you'll see a brief survey pop up after you close out. The feedback helps us and helps our presenters, so if you wouldn't mind taking just a couple of seconds to do that, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Laura.